Respect.
All right, so we can get started. So I'll be focusing on navigating AI-driven personalized learning in the K through 12 education space. So this is for the IEEE 2024 SoutheastCon Engineering Ethics Competition. So just a bit about IEEE. It's the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers. It is an international professional organization dedicated to advancing technology for the benefit of our humanity. And it is involved in 30% of the world's literature in the electrical and computer engineering kind of departments that is published in 100 plus peer-reviewed journals yearly. And I'm really honored to be part of this and would love to share more about this year's prompt that I'll be focusing within the AI ethics competition. So the prompt for this year that was given to us was discuss an issue in today's world that AI could help solve. However, it would not be ethical to do so since it would break the current IEEE Code of Ethics. So as we all know, all organizations have their Code of Ethics, and since IEEE focuses on advancing technology for humanity, there are multiple code of ethics that align with general ethical terms that we hear in multiple companies or arenas. So what I'll be talking about is an issue that AI could help solve, detail its pros and cons, check whether the pros and cons outweigh, and see what codes are broken in the IEEE, and what other solutions we could suggest in course to amend the IEEE Code of Ethics. And then lastly, I would like to open the room for discussion. So you could ask me some questions. I could see how I can kind of respond to that, and that would help the judges learn more about my knowledge around this topic. So IEEE Code of Ethics, the three most important codes and that outline and sort of are overboard on topic of AI and technology in general is upholding the highest standards for integrity, responsible behavior, and ethical conduct in professional activities, treating all persons fairly with respect, to not engage in harassment or discrimination or to avoid injuring others, and to strive for ensuring code is upheld by our colleagues and co-workers in this field of electrical and computer engineering or even beyond. So it's just a guiding framework for ethical behavior in our technical community. So this is a brief overview, and these are the listed code of ethics. You can read later. This presentation has been shared with you. But this was just a bit of background. And now let's delve into the problem and what solution AI could help us with. So the problem I'm focusing on here is traditional education methods fail to address diverse learning needs. In education systems, we see there's a significant challenge that K through 12, kindergarten to 12th grade education faces, because there's this inability to filter and curate educational materials or content that is tailored to specific student needs, especially different styles of learning based on their abilities, different backgrounds, the diverse perspectives, their diverse family backgrounds, upbringings. And so now there's a move of educators moving towards leveraging AI or other technologies, trying to see how we could improve and personalize educational materials and contents for students in order to have a better and enhanced educational experience. So AI, how could we involve AI in solving this? In my view, AI-driven personalized content filtering could help revolutionize education. And there are multiple ways education systems and many universities and schools are moving towards this, because there are so many types of students involved in one classroom setting. How can we ensure they have the best experience tailored to their particular pathway, in keeping in mind their personal past experiences? This could include data collection, machine learning algorithms tailored to, content curation that is specific to a student's learning needs, adaptive learning systems, recommendation engines. These are just few examples where AI could come in. And we see there's a lot of educators interested in leveraging AI for this matter. So what are the pros and cons? In my belief, I assess the pros firstly that there's a lot of scope for personalized learning. Students can improve their learning pace. Each of the students, they can have their own preferences and capabilities, and it can just enhance their learning experiences. It could adapt to each student in their own specific needs. With massive power of AI and data collection, we can tailor it to each specific student or their student domain group needs. Efficiency, that's a very obvious one. As you may know, this will save a lot of educators' time. And on the other hand, it could spare them more time for more important discussions, like how can they address other aspects of education that may need more of their time and attention to. Other few pros, accessibility. This is a very clear one. It will cater to different aspects of student needs and diverse learning needs, and students will feel more supported and have more resources along their way. And this can also help improve students' mental health, as we see that's an issue that's rising as well. And how can we make each student heard? Another aspect is data-driven insights. Data is super powerful in our economy, information-rich economy, that we can use every aspect of data and ensure how we can kind of combine and converge different insights to lead to actionable outcomes. Again, now every coin has two sides. So what are the cons of this? There are several privacy concerns, especially when dealing with data, sensitive data of students. And there's multiple, codes or legislation or laws that have to, be dealt with prior to dealing with student-centric data. So it could lead to, privacy infringement, issues around how this data would be used, or what's the potential to be misused. There's the GDPR laws, and again, if this is to expand over different countries or states, all states have their own laws, all countries have their own laws. How are we going to standardize this? That's one issue to tackle. Then the other one is the bigger one of bias, discrimination. It could perpetuate existing inequalities, inequities, and it would bring it to settings of vulnerable populations like students. And it could lead to just unequal learning opportunities in student environments. Then there's loss of autonomy. If AI is already taking over this aspect, what's the role of educators? We don't want to blur that line between what is education and what is assisted education, and sort of assisting teachers versus taking over the role. And I would love to hear your views here, Mr. Conover, as you're also in the education space here. So looking forward to a question from you. And the next aspect is overemphasis on efficiency. So what's the true goal that we're trying to get to? I think understanding that aspect will help us not overlook that going too much into standardizing education, going too much into providing the best experience for every student. I hope we don't lose that track of what education was meant to be in the initial phase. It was meant to foster critical thinking. It was meant to make students aware about, their positioning in the society. But if we tailor it to every student needs, wouldn't that restrict a student's level of understanding about how systems work in the environment, in the communities, how, different stakeholders interact? So would this, lead to a possible negative outcome on the learning experience about interconnectedness, global understanding of different systems? So what are the IEEE codes that have been violated here if AI would be used? In my belief, firstly, the code one, which is about ensuring public safety, health, and welfare to comply with ethical design and development. This, as you may know, would raise multiple concerns about privacy infringement, because dealing with student data, we must, gather proper consent, and that would need to have a lot of paperwork, and it's very judiciary in nature, but that would take up a lot of student and just in general education sector time in devoting to this. So that would be one thing that had to have more time devoted to. Second one, in my view, is understanding, improve the understanding of individuals and societies, of the capabilities and social implications. So as we know, being transparent about what are the capabilities of this technology, what is it meant to do, what are the limitations, would be important to ensure we don't hinder any, the biases don't within the AI don't hinder the understanding of societal implications. And as we know, AI is based on a black box model. Again, the designers who are curating these technologies would have to have a diverse team of group stakeholders working on it, not just within the computer science field, but also within different fields like psychology, philosophy, sociology, because that's something we're also working on within Future World Alliance. How can we have different lenses working on a similar problem? So they bring in the diverse views from every aspect that they think would benefit this technology. So I guess that is one important aspect, and that is very prevalent across all AI design and deployment domains. Code 5, seek, accept, and offer honest criticism of technical work to acknowledge and correct errors. And the claims about efficacy and fairness must be transparent with, and the data must be unbiased. Since if there's misleading data or claims, it could lead to possible and unethical decision making and could potentially harm educational outcomes. Code 6, maintain and improve our technical competence and undertake technological tasks for others only if they're qualified by training or experience, and there must be full disclosure of the limitations. So this is a really big one, and this is something most education systems need to move forward to when employing any sort of technological tools or equipment in their curriculum. Educators and developers must possess necessary competence in dealing with these technologies. We see this wave of AI. Everyone wants to adopt AI, AI business, AI, AI-led curriculum, AI-driven learning. But do we comply with the basic rules and regulations? And do we have the proper training? We need to ensure that. And with the current IEEE codes, there is no data about what is the role of educators to play in this, or what is the role of other stakeholders to play in this prior to utilizing this technology. So how can we ensure that AI in education aligns with the current IEEE codes? I believe it is time that we amend these codes to match the pace of how fast technology and AI is improving and the fast pace of development in general. So I believe we must incorporate specific guidelines tailored to responsible AI use. That is to do with incorporating principles of fairness, incorporating principles of transparency, accountability into the whole deployment process, and start from the design all the way to the deployment. Second, we need some codes that talk about mandatory training and disclosure prior to deploying AI. Since you may have read prior, there wasn't anything specific about AI. There wasn't any specific about what would happen if there were to have more negative impacts. So I feel there must be this sort of metric or rules laid out for people employing this. Specifically in this scenario, educators must go through mandatory training and sort of prerequisites before using AI. Third, mandating regular audits and assessments, making sure that these AI algorithms are updated, they're not, giving any outdated information, or they're not, potentially perpetuating scientific falsehoods or misinformation, disinformation, since it's very common in our information-rich economy. And as we see with ChatGPT, it sometimes, tends to hallucinate information, or there's just potential logical fallacies in the outputs that we see. So ensuring we also have frequent audits and regular assessments. And lastly, promoting open dialogue. I think this is an important part, and this thing that we're in this is the first step to doing so. I'm super happy that you're all here from every different background that you're in, still interested in AI and education. That's something we all truly feel connected to, is education, and how we can ensure the future generation has the best education possible, but also making sure it aligns with what humanity and the values are. So I guess forming these kind of open dialogues between different stakeholders, including educators, industry leaders, parents, policymakers, legislators, engineers. This is essential. And I'm really happy to share I have been working on a project that would potentially contribute to this. So for the past year, I've been working on an AI and ethics justice equity issue project where I have been formulate these key guidelines and rules that we could embed into current legislation around AI ethics. So I'll be traveling to Washington, D.C. next month to talk to a few congressmen about this. And this has been in collaboration with Future World Alliance, which two members are present here today. So if you're excited to know more, we can delve into that too. But in my belief, this is what needs to be added or amended in the IEEE Code of Ethics, so we can ensure that when we have future AI use cases, we employ it in the best way possible with the Code of Ethics in mind and the vision of AI and the mission it is for. So yes, that was my presentation, and a required aspect of this is a question from all attendees, so I open it up to you all. Thank you so much.
Wonderful, Ishita.
Thank you.
This was great and very, very timely, I must say. In fact, we're working with a very large client currently. I was telling David Conover about this. It's a company called Smarter Balanced out of the state of California, that what they want to tackle is the challenge with traditional skills assessments in K through 12. There's been much documented research showing the challenges around inequity or inequitable outcomes using traditional skills assessments. And this company wants to use AI to address those challenges. So one of the first things that we've been doing is bringing together truly diverse and inclusive groups of people via a think tank, which, by the way, if you or anybody here is interested in joining it, it's completely open. And we're going to be using design thinking frameworks to consider what are the human values that we want to see reflected in AI models that are going to be used to assess kids' skills. And what's been fascinating about the effort is originally we did start off with the obvious principles like, fairness, explainability, adversarial robustness, transparency, data privacy, but we very quickly ended up expanding it to include other principles, including things like kindness, including things like growth mindset. Because if you've got an AI model that is going to be conversing with, let's say, an autistic sixth grader who's feeling depressed, you're going to want to make sure that it is behaving in the way that ultimately reflects the values of the organization that is using the AI. Anyway, I just wanted to make that point because, as we think about what are exactly the principles that we want to see reflected, using things like design thinking frameworks in these large, diverse, inclusive communities can just be so illuminating. Anyway, wanted to share.
Yeah, thank you so much. Anybody else? Any thoughts or questions?
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Oh,
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Really, really quickly. One other idea for you is that in addition to thinking through what are the risks and potentially how to mitigate those risks at large, the next step that I would recommend you look at is to be thinking about what would the functional and non-functional requirements for the AI model and for the systems around the AI model need to look like specifically for how to operationalize those principles. And that's an exercise that we too are going to be doing with the think tank. And I'll share all the design thinking frameworks with you too, so you can replicate.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you so much.
A really great presentation, Ishita, and really insightful. And I really loved your point about the loss of autonomy point, where what's education versus what is assisted education. Again, the goal is to not replace the current teachers, but rather leverage AI to enhance the learning experience and personalize it, right? I have two questions. My first question is related to the IEEE second code of the conduct that you highlighted, that we should treat all people fairly and not engage in harassment and discrimination, right? This is something you already highlighted in the cons section. The question is, how can AI algorithms avoid reinforcing biases and stereotypes in educational content and recommendations? Any thoughts on that?
Yes, that's a really great question. I think it all starts with at the process of ideation. When they begin forming the team for working on this specific AI algorithm, I think that's where it all starts. And then moving on, whatever happens beyond that is all the consequences of the team. I believe as of now, we just associate AI or computer science with this technological field, and we just kind of compartmentalize it in that. And through that, we can see it's potentially a more male dominated field. It's potentially, a lot of these views within computer scientists and engineers, it's pretty restricted. But we fail to realize that these technologies are not just limited to these people. It is, it is, it is a reflection of the entire society that we need to kind of deploy this in. So I believe it all starts at that point where the team forms. And for that, we need to have this idea of bridging in more diversity and inclusion at the team level. Because having different views, having different lenses, looking at the same problem through their personal life experiences, having these eyes looking at the problem that have nothing to do with one another. They don't look like each other, they don't think like each other. Different views, different ideologies, bringing into one project on I think would enhance the project more and actually reflect the values of humanity across nations, across races, across differences in diversity. So I think it all starts at that point, and then beyond that, it's a more of reflection of what the team kind of curates for that model to do. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Yeah, thank you, Shita. I have a quick follow-up, and then I'll let rest of the panelists answer any questions and continue the conversation. It's a
Yeah.
two-part question. What measures can we take to ensure transparency and accountability into the AI algorithms? Essentially, what the data is fed as an input to the models, the output will be based on that, be constructed upon that, right? So how can we ensure
Mhm.
transparency into that? And the second question is, how can we work with current educators and policymakers to spread more awareness on the ethical aspect of the learning?
Awesome. So I think I have one response to both your questions actually, because it all starts with the aspect of creating awareness. Why is there lack of awareness? Why is there lack of transparency? Why is there lack of accountability? Because there's lack of awareness. We as a society still need to grasp the idea of AI and the idea of AI ethics. What are the rules we need to set? What are the metrics we need to set for AI to be ethical, for AI to be efficiently built? I think it all starts with that forging of relationships and cross communication between different domains, as you rightly mentioned: policymakers, legislators, students, educators, industry leaders. All of us need to kind of get involved in this one conversation about what are our values and where is our technology taking us. I think we need to look back to where and why technology was created. It was initially created during the industrial revolution to assist humans, to automate these mundane tasks. But are we seeing the same impact of the current technologies? No, rather they're perpetuating existing differences between us. They're perpetuating existing biases. So how can we ensure and kind of as a cohesive as a cohesive way of looking at technology, it is a bridge to enhancing experiences, making our tasks more seamless. So I think it's all starting with the conversation, and as you rightly mentioned, we need to get more interdisciplines involved. So once we have that conversation, once we have everyone aligning with their perspective on what technology should be, what the future should look like for all of us, I think that's when we realize this is why we need transparency. This is why we need accountability, so we can work together and kind of forge a proper collaboration that is hand in hand with our future and humanity.
Thank you, Ishita. Again, really great response. Congratulations
Thank you
and good
so
luck
much.
with the great initiative.
I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Ishita, I will go next. I go to Ketan's point, loss of autonomy. Yeah, I feel students should not feel AI software is my teacher. That's very important thing. And being parent of two kids which are going to elementary school, I see, at this small age, they tend to follow, what they get answers from. So if they start getting answers, everything from AI, they will have that thing in their mind. So that is very important. And I know you're still working on use cases and everything, but I feel AI in education is good. But ultimately, whatever software algorithm what we do should ultimately, not everything, but a lot of things should also result to some practical stuff what they do, like reading books should not go away. They should still be doing some practical experiments. So all that things should be taken care, even we use AI in any student education program. So I still feel those are the basics every should know, and those are nurtured when uh, students are in kindergarten, first grade, and second grade. So we should still maintain that. Whatever softwares or algorithms we want to develop, these things should be taken care of initially. So that's my say on that. But otherwise, wonderful presentation and good luck to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Great point.
I'll go next, Ishita. I think it was a great presentation. I really liked the presentation, and it was really insightful. The thing that I was kind of thinking, like, maybe do we need more information about the emotions of the children, so like how we are dealing with what kind of children's, like not just the data-driven insights, right? It should be like um, even if they are quite good at grasping some concepts, maybe just some children, but uh, emotionally they're lacking at some extent. So we should need that kind of data as well. And AI, if we are kind of dependent on AI for that, then there should be a different kind of regulation on AI for that. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, that's a very good point. I think our current traditional education system and the conventional way through how education was taught for all of us, it fails to recognize the different aspects and different, changes, in student behavior over time, how students have evolved. Before, I think during, my parents' time, it was, technology was not as prevalent. So the way they were taught was very, one way focused. And now we have so many tools that students are actually overwhelmed with the amount of information they have to deal with. So that's a very good point about how we can also bring in the idea of emotional well-being of students. And I think it's of increasing concern. And I love that you bring that up, because I think that's one thing a lot of educators are exploring. How can we make sure it's a wonderful experience for students? But again, it brings the most ethical issue up. How do we kind of measure, and how do we kind of get this data without breaking the ethics code? How do we ensure that we're not misusing this data? And again, if we go to employ this just right away, because there are so many startups coming up with this technology who are really excited and pumped to just employ this and deploy this and experiment how this goes. It's a good strategy to just experiment, but I believe we need to have, as a society, a cohesive list of standards that we would abide by, and that's currently what's lacking. But I think programs like these, like competitions like these, are helping us forge the dialogue. And I'm excited to delve more into that, because one aspect we fail to recognize is usually we just compartmentalize students. Students who are normal or do well, or the students who need special needs. But then there's like a whole spectrum of students, especially the Gen Z and the upcoming generation of students who might have, great abilities, but still lack in some aspect. So I think accounting for that would also be important. Hope that answers the question.
Yeah, and mostly you said this thing like competitions like this will
Yeah.
actually speak for it. Like they will kind of raise the voices, and that will be dealt in future, or maybe yeah, later
Yeah,
on.
and I love this competition because not only are we thinking about this, forging a dialogue, having people like you involved in this conversation, like again, forging these cross-communication dialogues between industry and education, but also at the same time, we're giving them advice on how IEEE could kind of update their codes. So it's like a two-in-one, a win-win situation. So you're rightly said, yes.
Also, I think I'm taking a lot of time, but one thing I wanted to know, I think how would the professors or the teachers would like tackle all these data that they have with, I mean, as you said, like the AI would be just an assistant to the teacher. So I would like to know this thing from I think we have one guest here, right? So
Yes. Mr. Conover, would you like to pitch in?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Could you rephrase or repeat the question again, please?
it's like if we have a lot of data sets for all the students that we have here, like there's different set of students they have, and the AI have generated different set of patterns for each student. So how do the educators, how do the teachers cater to this data, and how will they proceed with it? Like they'll have to work a bit too hard for this thing, I feel, or is it not?
Well, it's a difficult question to answer because we're inventing this as we go along, and we haven't been so steeped in this environment so that we can have quick answers to that. Right now, we're still kind of aggregating data and collecting data from various learning models, but I don't have a firm, quick answer to that. We're still building this jet as we fly it.
Yeah, I think so. It's quite reasonable. Yeah, that's true.
But it's a great question. That's one of the questions that we want to pursue and answer. So keep those questions coming.
Yeah, right. Thank you so much, Ashita, for this thing. I think I'm set for today. Yeah.
Yes, I think if you all are, time constrained, whoever has asked the question, you can feel free to stay, or if you need to go and do. But anybody else who has any questions?
Hi, Ishita. This is Nagaraja.
Yes.
So it was very good presentation, and learn to nice to hear all the IEEE codes and all. So, like as a parent, I have a question. Like I know in the college kids and all is all technology is really good, but for the like in the elementary, like kindergarten, first grade, second grade, like that. So normally kids likes to have some interaction with the teachers as like in a traditional way to start learning basic things, letter writing. They need some help in the writing and all. But nowadays, if I ask some question, they'll say, "Okay, let me get the answer from the online or some way instead of thinking more." So how it will be, whether it will be pros or cons in the future, another 5-10 years when the AI comes in the education.
Yeah.
Only the question is like as a parent, I have that concern. So
No, I can understand, and it's a great point that you bring up, because Nowadays, we see, screen time is a big question that all parents are also concerned about. Yes, AI might improve my students' experience, but I don't want my child to always be around technology. I don't want my child to get glasses at a young age. There's so many of these concerns that parents have, and thank you so much for bringing that up. I think that's another thing that we need to explore. How much access do we use to technology or AI? Even it makes improve the experience, open up a world of possibilities, but what is that line where what's the boundary to what is too much and what is the best optimal? And I think, as Mr. Conover rightly mentioned, we are moving and we are just inventing it as we go. And I think with more of these sort of experiments on particular sector of schools or particular age groups, I think we'll see what works best and we would need to work around it. But yeah, one main thing I think it is echoing throughout this presentation and the whole discussion is having that dialogue, having these conversations where we can collaborate with people like you, parents, and in the technical field, people who are legislators, but they also care about education. So I think we all need to kind of build this coalition for understanding AI ethics, but at the same time, how can we tailor it best to different domains? Education, there's like energy sector. I know we have someone here today from the energy sector, Praharsh. He's doing his PhD in renewable energy sector. So just like this is just one aspect, it's just one part of the whole AI ethics conversation. But I think this is one of the main parts because that's where it all spurs. Education is spurring all the other domains. So how we train our young kids now will tell us how the future will look in 15 years to come. So I guess this is the start, and I guess we'll need to start figuring that out. How are we building this more rapidly, these conversations? So in fact, through Future World Alliance and NC State University, I'm going to be leading a panel discussion series about AI ethics and in different domains. So law, technology, renewable energy, sustainability, climate change, multiple different domains. So I'd love for you guys to join as well. So it's one step in forging that dialogue.
Yeah, thank you, Ishita.
I can go next, probably. Great presentation, Ishita. I loved it. And for me, a lot of the concepts were new, especially the code aspects. And at the same time, the overall framework was something which you presented it very well. I have a question regarding code 1, which is regarding the privacy infringement and handling of the sensitive data. Or you could stay on the same slide, actually. Oh,
More
okay.
close around
All
it.
right. So my main question was, how do the AI companies or the ones who own the models deal with the solutions that you propose? So you said there could be more paperwork or more judicial process. So there is this solution to make sure that these companies are not evil. So we say, don't be evil to the companies. On the other hand of the spectrum, you can also have technologies which say that they can't be evil. So what is your stance on these two parts? So one is like enforcing the rules versus for having technologies which restrict such possible, which restrict the break of code. For example, one suggestion could be like zero knowledge transfer. So it's like you transfer knowledge without actually giving all information away. So what is your thought on that?
Yeah, you bring up a very interesting question, and I would like to address the part about the evil, technologies. How do they, technology companies, how do they ensure they're not being evil or like misusing the data? Was that part of your question, like misusing the data or like doing something that they're not supposed to ethically?
Yeah, or like how are they, how do we ensure that they don't break code 1 rather?
They don't break code, right?
Yeah.
So as far as I know, like as a student, like looking into these companies, like just briefly like researching online, I think each of our companies do have like our code of ethics. Like I'm sure all of you would agree, even here representing different companies, there are certain code of ethics, but it's not even, they are not someone we can blame either, because they are not just dealing with the advancement of technology at such an exponential pace. They're also actively developing a technology, so it's like hard to keep up for them. So I can't even blame them either, that if they don't abide by one code or something, that they have completely lost the ability to be ethical. So I think that's one part. It's just such a fast pace. It's all of us are trying to learn it. Everyone's trying to figure out what it is. There are so many unknowns, and it's such a VUCA world, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous, just so many things at once. So I think there's not one person to blame. It's just we need to kind of form this system that enforces the need for AI and the importance of ethics, AI ethics. The second part I would like to respond is the companies, sometimes they themselves are unaware that they're breaking a code, because in their view, they might be working on this technology. All their engineers are like deeply engrossed in the building of the technology. Like you may feel that sometimes you're doing a PhD, right? You're so engrossed, you're going to the depth of the technology that you don't see the other aspects anymore. You're like completely engrossed in like leading that one invention forward. So interesting conversation. I was actually in California 2 days back, and I was talking that about to someone in supercomputers, and they're developing supercomputers, and we know how much energy hungry supercomputers are, and how they possibly lead to lack of sustainability, and take up most of the Earth's kind of resources, and cooling down, and then heating up, and then getting all that. So I asked them, how do you respond to these people? Yes, supercomputers are going to change the world, it's going to be so beneficial. But how do you respond to these people who talk about, sustainability, how much this is negatively impacting the world? How do you respond to them? His response was, he's an engineer, senior director of the project. His response was, I care about going in deep about my project, and my goal is to do as much as I can to invent this technology. And he said, the interesting part he said next was, I believe in the other engineers who will solve the other problems that we create. So it's sort of funny to think about it, but actually in reality, it is true, because unless and until you don't completely exploit one technology, you won't know how much there is to offer for that technology. You won't completely go into depths of it. You won't know like how much there is. So I feel to some extent we need this trial and error kind of spirit of like just kind of exploring these arenas, even though they might be unethical. But again, it's the role of the other engineers, and possibly engineers like me in the future who have this knowledge of philosophy and engineering and the ethics aspect, who can see through technology, but also kind of where the pace is leading to as humanity. I'm not sure if that answered the question, but that was some insightful thing I thought about.
Love the response, actually. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Conover or Phaedra, do you have any questions?
Oh, I've just been sprinkling in the chat. I mean, per the last question, I mean, I was making the point of even companies that truly have the best of intentions, the very best of intentions, can end up causing inadvertent harm, and it has very little to do with malintent. I think oftentimes it's just a lack of literacy and understanding, and not just with respect to the nature of data and how the sausage is made, but truly a lack of multidisciplinary understanding. For example, there are people who are developing AI models to determine what percentage interest rates people should get on home loans that have never heard of the word redlining before. They're just utterly unaware of inequity and just considering what does this mean in terms of how you build AI that could then calcify those systems of inequity. anyway, I think you're spot on. I love the emphasis on the multidisciplinary approach. I love the emphasis on the code of ethics and what it's going to take to actually operationalize this all on the ground. The introspection on why diversity matters. As you're looking at your teams of people who are actually developing these models, being able to ask the question, how many women are on this team? How many Black, Indigenous people of color on this team? But earnestly also, how many different lived world experiences are on this team? Because recognizing that today there's this tiny homogeneous group of people who are making the decisions of what data is going to be used to train my models. I mean, that is something I think we really need to recognize and consider. All in all, this was great. Thank you so much for preaching the word.
Thank you. And I must say, it's a culmination of your teachings and wisdoms through Future World Alliance. And just a plug for AI for the Rest of Us book. Miss Phaedra wrote the book AI for the Rest of Us, and you guys should definitely get into it. Hop on reading it, because all that I have gained for the past 1.5 years of being with Future World Alliance is this presentation. So if you found this anything interesting, I'm so thankful to Ross, Ms. Phaedra, Mr. Conover for giving me this opportunity to learn under your tenure and kind of just taking me under the wing of AI ethics.
We love you too, honey. We love you. I mean, seriously, you've made my day. It's wonderful to see someone like you go and do this work. Just, it makes my day. Thank you.
I think Mr. Conover, yeah.
Just said ditto. Whatever, exactly what Phaedra said. You're doing a fantastic job leading by example. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. Any of you have any more questions? This is like a never-ending conversation. This is just the first step. So we'll have more of this if we have like more interest. And
Ishita, I put a couple of questions in the chat room, so you can ruminate over those at a later point.
Yeah, sorry, I just completely didn't see the chat, so I'm looking at it now.
No worries, no worries. You've addressed a number of great questions, so this is just further homework.
Sounds great. Any pressing question you want me to address right now?
Nothing.
Okay. All right. So if anybody has any other questions, we can delve into that, or we can end it here. I'll stop the recording so we can say goodbyes properly, but all good? Awesome. I will stop the recording. 1 second.